Wrestling Picks is a relatively young company. Started in 2018 with a podcast where I was just speaking into a computer and nobody cared to listen to me, and now we're here. And we talked about a lot of fights, and we talked about a lot of exciting fights that have fallen flat on their face. Q Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis. But there's some that we've said, like Danny Robertson, David Zavada, where they've gone just absolutely ballistic. This is one of those fights you're going to want to pay attention to, and you're not going to want to miss it. And I know it's on the main card of a big card, but still, Dan Ige versus Edson Barboza is can't miss television. Dan Ige at 145 pounds since coming in on Contender Series Season 1 in 2017, lost his UFC debut to Julio Arce at UFC 220. And for a lot of people, maybe not a nail in the coffin, but it's the start of a poor trend that you don't want to keep up. But since then, he's won 5 fights in a row, and he's on an absolute heater. In his last fight, he beat Mirsad Bektic, albeit by split decision, but a big win over a recognizable name. It just sucks for him that he's taken on Edson Barboza, probably one of the most prolific strikers in not just the lightweight division, but pretty much all of MMA. I mean, if you've watched a highlight pack, you've seen Edson Barboza spinning wheel kicking Terry Edom into oblivion. So you get this fight where Edson Barboza was originally scheduled to take on Josh Emmett this spring. You get Dan Ige, who's coming into a fight against a guy who we haven't really seen much of at all, really, at 145, and Edson Barboza. What do you make of this fight? I think it's great.
I do too.
But I don't know what to expect.
It really comes down to the weight cut for Edson. I think if we do see Edson even at 90% of his full capacity, I'll kind of give away my prediction right now. If he looks decent, even the night of fights, I think he's going to run away with this. Dan Ige's not really a finisher, and also, he's not a massive featherweight. Edson Barboza's a good-sized lightweight, so I don't even know how he's going to make featherweight, but if they both make the weight classes, you kind of have a blown-up bantamweight fighting a huge lightweight. So it's going to be really interesting to see the size discrepancy once they do get into the cage. But for more of the X's and O's, Dan Ige primarily wins by decision, but they are extremely exciting fights, and he's not afraid to give one to take one. Edson Barboza is the last man on planet Earth that you want to give one to take one with, because if you are in there, I'm going to need a leg kick, but maybe I can get a left hook off. If you are kind of playing that math in your head, Edson Barboza is going to run away with this fight. He's fought extremely high-level strikers in the past. Not to say Dan Ige is not a good striker, but he's not a Paul Felder. He's not a Tony Ferguson. He's not an Anthony Pettis, for instance, a guy who Edson Barboza beat very cleanly in the stand-up. So I think Dan Ige will have a few moments in this fight. I think he'll be able to get maybe Edson down, trip him, get back up to their feet. He can make the fight ugly, but I keep on thinking back to the Beneil Dariush fight for Edson Barboza. Beneil Dariush is just really good at everything, and he was able to implement his jab and pressure throughout the whole first round, and I was like, oh no, Edson's probably going to lose this fight. And then the second round, this is how good of a striker Edson Barboza is. Luke Thomas broke it down. I always have to think of it when I think of Edson Barboza. He was able to realize that Beneil Dariush's jab was trying to set up his takedown the whole entire fight. So he felt the jab, realized that there was nothing behind it, knew that a takedown was coming next, and decided to answer it with a flying knee. That's insane. In fighting, I always liken it, and I shouldn't, but I always do. If you ever watch really, really high-level boxers, and they're fighting somebody that's mid-tier, too high-level, they'll take a few rounds off. They'll game plan. They'll really analyze what the other fighter's doing, mirror it, copy it, and beat them at their own game. You look at a guy like Floyd Mayweather. The first 4 or 5 rounds of a Mayweather fight might be boring. Because he has 12 to catch up.
You might think Floyd Mayweather's going to lose this fight. He's just downloading his opponent's game plan to beat him. Edson Barboza can do that. Mind you, a lot of people are going to point to the fact that Barboza hasn't really had a lot of success in his last 5 fights. I mean, he's 1-4. But we're talking about some of the best fighters, not just of right now, of all time. I mean, Khabib was the first of those losses, and his last fight was against Paul Felder, which was a split decision loss in a fight that a lot of people thought Barboza won. So, not to take anything away from Dan Ige, and not to give too much credibility to Edson Barboza, but at 145, what do you get? Because it is all dependent on the weight issue. Is there going to be an issue? Just the weight cut in general. And in the times that we're at right now, who knows how any of these fighters are going to react to this?
Remember what Edson Barboza did to Dan Hooker, who's ranked 5th in the world right now at lightweight? It was one of the more lopsided fights you'll ever see, one of the more violent fights you've ever seen, just because of the speed advantage of Edson Barboza. He's that much faster than Dan Hooker. Dan Ige a good striker, but he's not even close to Dan Hooker's level. And that's showing you just how good Edson Barboza is. He's able to outclass some of the best strikers in the world who train with guys like Israel Adesanya, who you would think would be able to mimic a guy like Edson Barboza very, very well. That's how good this guy is. And I understand, if you've lost 4 of your last 5 fights, people are probably looking at you thinking, okay, it's probably over. But when you lose to Justin Gaethje, Kevin Lee, Khabib Nurmagomedov, there's no shame in any of those losses. So I think him moving down in weight, it could be kind of a fresh coat of paint on a new weight class. Let's say he does go out there, finishes Dan Ige. The sky's kind of the limit for Edson Barboza at featherweight.
Especially kind of longer in his career. I know he's had 28 pro fights to this point. But yeah, like you said, I mean, featherweight is a really stacked division. We did a whole video on the state of the featherweight division. But still, for a guy like Edson Barboza that's as high level as a specialist as you can find, I think there's definitely a place for him. And we've seen that so far with the booking, not just against Josh Emmett, which obviously fell through, but with Dan Ige as well. In terms of the odds, Barboza minus 135 favorite, Dan Ige coming in at a plus 110 underdog, so relatively close. Yeah. And if you look over in Tapology, small sample size, out of 178 votes, we're split 50-50. So kind of wild to see that that's the way the fans are going. Odds makers seeing it as close. I think, again, if you get a perfect scenario, perfect weight cut, Edson Barboza's look drawn out at 155. And listen, most people look drawn out at weigh-in day unless you're a heavyweight or you're fighting way up in a couple of weight classes. It just all depends on that. If everything's created equal, I think Barboza wins, but it'll be interesting to see.
I'm very excited for this fight either way, because if Dan Ige wins, that's such a huge win to have on your resume. It just boosts you up the rankings like crazy. And if Edson can beat a guy like Dan Ige, I know he doesn't really get the respect he deserves at this point, but still, to beat a top 15 guy in your first fight down a weight class, it's probably the best thing to happen for Edson Barboza. I can't wait for this fight. I'm very excited.
So I'll have to wait and see what happens. You're going to have to stay locked in with Fight Night picks. We've got predictions for 3 cards in 8 days, including the entire playlist for this fight card. You're not going to want to miss it. And as we always say, Matt, Fight Night picks, let's get into it.